It's a little bit after 4, so don't want to delay this too much because we don't have unlimited time. So I'd like to start first of all with a prayer. Some of you might be familiar with this. This is a traditional 3 o'clock prayer, even though it's 4 o'clock here in Hawaii, and it's 9 o'clock in St. Louis and Texas. But we'll start with the 3 o'clock prayer. In the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Lord Jesus, we gather in spirit at the foot of the cross with your mother and the disciple whom you loved. We ask your pardon for our sins, which are the cause of your death. We thank you for remembering us in that hour of salvation and for giving us Mary as our mother. Holy Virgin, take us under your protection and open us to the action of the Holy Spirit. St. John, obtain for us the grace of taking Mary into our lives as you did and of assisting her in her mission. May the Father and the Son and the Holy Spirit be glorified in all places through the Immaculate Virgin Mary. Amen. So thanks very much to Brother Mark Motz and Mallory Green. We have a number of friends joining us today to talk about the joy of small faith communities. And although a number of people on the call will probably know you, let me just make a brief introduction. So what we'll do after the introduction, I'll turn it over to you, Mark and Mallory, and we'll go for your presentation, whatever you want to share. And then participants can either send a question on the chat, or we can just take them individually at the end. So Mallory Green Lewis met the Mariness as an undergraduate student at the University of Dayton. And she made a commitment to a lay Mariness group as a member of the Vessels community on December 12th, 2009. Mark was part of that same group as a student and making his commitment at the same time. So they've been members of that community now for 12 years. Mallory earned a degree in education from UD, and then she moved here to Hawaii. And that's where I first met her. She taught at St. Anthony's School. I remember sitting in on one of her classes. And then she was at St. Louis School for a couple of years. While she was here in Hawaii, she attended Chaminade and did a master's in counseling psychology and was an active member of the Mystical Rose oratory community. In 2015, she moved to St. Louis and served at another Marianist high school, St. Mary's High School in St. Louis. And she has just recently completed her doctoral degree in educational leadership at that Jesuit university in St. Louis. But that's okay. That's okay. Their education is good too. Mallory has been involved in the Marinus family as part of the national leadership team and other units for many years. And she currently is doing fundraising for Cardinal Glennon Children's Hospital in St. Louis, which is really a fine, fine hospital helping very, very sick kids. And she lives in O'Fallon, Illinois, which is really a suburb of St. Louis, more or less. And her husband, Dan, is a lawyer, and she has 2 9-month-old twin boys, Will and Gabe, and a couple of dogs. So Mallory, thank you so much. And we're really happy for your growing family. Brother Mark Motz, I've known Mark for many, many years. And he first met the Marianists when he was 6 days old, probably through your uncle, I guess. Yeah. And he was also part of the Vessels community, or is part of the Vessels community that he first joined at the University of Dayton. That community, by the way, meets monthly and tries to get together in person for retreats on an annual basis. So they've really invested in this community. There's quite a number of them that exist. After graduation from the University of Dayton, Mark entered the Society of Mary and extended his commitment to the Marianist family and professed first vows in 2013. And I was happy to be part of that ceremony. After that, he came to Chaminade University and was working in the campus ministry department here in spiritual development. And he also did quite a bit of work with some people on the call today in forming local Marianist lay communities, and he'll talk about that. Mark is currently the vocation director for the Marianist province of the United States and lives in San Antonio, Texas, but at least before the pandemic has moved around a lot, talking to young men and women interested in Marianist religious life, both for men and for women. So we're really delighted. This is the second last of our Share the Joy series. And we were really delighted when we could get both of these people, Mark and Mallory, who have been invested for so long and have a lot of experience, to share with us the importance in their life of faith community. So with that, I'll turn it over to Mark and Mallory. And as I said, if some of you have questions that you'd like to ask at the end, just send them to me on the chat and I'll pick them up.
Wonderful. Well, thank you. I am super excited to be here. So actually, I was supposed to be in Hawaii in March. I was going to do vocation talks and all kinds of stuff. And then a little thing called the pandemic happened and didn't happen. So I'm glad to be here at least. I am an extrovert and Mallory is an even bigger extrovert. So we work really well on like feedback, and you guys all have it muted and stuff. So if you would like to unmute, please feel free. I mean, not unmute, unvideo. Start your video. Thanks, Elijah. Appreciate it.
Let us see your beautiful faces. No pressure.
Yeah, a little pressure from me, but she's not nicer than I am.
I'm trying to be nice.
Because we want to hear what you want to hear. And we have a outline, but really extroverts, we'll make it fit whatever you guys want. So feel free to engage in us. And we might even ask you to reply to some things in the chat, or, we'll play it by ear. We've done a lot of these Zooms over the last year. So we're going to talk a little bit about our experience with faith communities first. So both of us have this Marianist lay community experience and a special type of faith community in that way. But I think it's important to talk about faith communities as a whole first. So I've been involved in lots of Bible studies. I've been in a lot of things that people call Bible studies, but really it's more of a faith sharing than they talk about the Bible. Those professional campus ministers understand what I'm talking about there. Porch groups, life groups, all kinds of other acronym groups that people like to name things. But I've also been involved in intentional living communities, which I think is really important. And that's before I was a brother, which is definitely an intentional living community. But the University of Dayton has what's called Marianist student communities, where people live together and they live this Marianist charism. And I did that for a year. I lived in another intentional community called the Faith Vocation Leadership House. And that for me was something that was really important because there's a difference when it's intentional. There's faith communities that are like, oh, we'll get together and we'll talk about this book. But there's an intentionality that comes in that I think is really important. And I have found those especially to be true in Marianist lay communities, which are a different type of faith community. I've been in a lot of virtual and I've been in a lot of in-person groups. So I want to share a picture, mostly because you can see young Mark and young Mallory and whatnot in there. Actually, if you guys know Brother Brandon from St. Louis school, he's in there too. So he was actually, I think, a novice at the time, and he helped with our formation. So 12 years we've met together every month for 12 years, which is crazy. Back when all kinds of other things in school. And for me, I think that has been a really important thing. I'll talk about that at the end, but to have someone that has known you for 12 years in an intentional way. Like I can say something, I mean, Mallory's already smiling. Like there's stories that we have that are 12 years old, but also like our ebbs and flows in our faith life. There's an intentionality that comes, and we can say like, hey, I'm struggling with this. And Mallory could say, oh yeah, you did that, like struggle with that like 6 years ago. Here's what happened last time. Like there's something that's really important about that. So I'd say raise your hand, but there's, do you guys have spiritual directors, or do you journal? Like that's something that's really important for your faith life, especially if you go back and look at it. And that's also true with communities. Somebody that can say, hey, you've said this before, or you've been talking about that for the last 4 months. It's time to really do something about it. And for me, an intentional community has been huge in every place that I've lived. So St. Mary's High School in St. Louis, I was in a community of faculty and staff there. When I lived in Hawaii, and Mallory happened to live in Hawaii at the same time, we had the Basin and Towel Marinus Lake community.
I was there first. Thank you.
Excuse me. Also the Kalai Puhaku Marinus Lake community. So that was people from St. Louis and Chaminade and the Myscoros Oratory that came together, and we had a Marinus Lake community. I'm in a lake community here in San Antonio, but I also helped to start several lake communities. And I'm going to give you a list of words here that I think is really important. And actually, as I look back on it, Carol Ramey, who used to work for NACMS, who unfortunately just passed away, is the one that taught me this. And so I think it's a really important thing. Father Chaminade used these words, these I words, to start intentional communities. Invite, inform, involve, invest, intensify, intentionalize. I'll read those again, and I'll even copy and paste them and put them into the chat for you. Invite, inform, involve, invest, intensify, intentionalize. And that's how you start and sustain communities, by doing those things. And Father Chaminade, who I assume you all know who that is, was super talented at that. If you don't know who that is, I'm going to yell at Father Marty, and that's okay. And as a brother, I've really been in a place where I'm allowed and encouraged to start these communities. Now, you don't have to be a brother to start a community. Mallory's done it. There's a lot of people who've done it, but because I've been working here. So some of them, Kevin, don't leave, but these are students from Chaminade that have made commitments as a lay Marinus and a faith community. And I think that's a really important thing, because we can talk to Kevin later, but that has moved him in his faith life, I'm sure, post-college. And I'm going to shut up so Mallory can talk.
I don't know how many times you've said that in our lives, Mark. Hi, everybody. It's very nice to meet you all and to see some of you. It has been a long time since I left Hawaii in 2015. And also doesn't feel like I have. I think there's a little piece of it that sort of just stays with us and with me wherever I am. So for that, I'm very grateful, and it's fun to see. Really, I only see a few very familiar faces, but shout out to Eddie, because when I was at St. Louis school, he was there. So I'm very excited to see you continuing, Eddie, and Kevin, I know you too. Throughout, I think just showing up for conversations like this is a huge deal. Faith is a hard thing. And, Mark said we've been together for 12 years as this lay community. I've had some serious ups and downs, which we'll come back to in a little bit. But I think that's part of being a young adult, and life is difficult, and you're thrown with trying to figure out who you are and who you want to be and where you want to spend your time and your money and your energy. And then on top of that, all these existential things, and it's just really hard. And so the fact that you're here and you're just open to this and listening is really inspiring for me. And so I just wanted to say thank you for being here. Part of what Mark and I are sharing, kind of as how Mark, I think it's how we met, maybe, or at least really got to know each other. Maybe we've probably some other dumb story about how we met, but we really got to know each other as members of this vessel lay community at the University of Dayton, which Brother Brandon Alana, for those of you who may know him, was there. So it's kind of another local connection to pull it together. But we had a very formal formation program. We met weekly for 2 hours. We had classes, we had retreats, we had speakers and like lesson plans and all of that, which for me was really great because I'm a teacher at my core, so I kind of love learning in that way. And it gave us a process for understanding what this whole Marianist piece is about, but also for opening up to each other throughout. I didn't really know many of the people when we came together. And now they're some of the most trusted friends and allies that I have in my life. And one of the things that is unique about the formation experience and this community that we've built is that we are filled, we say we're filled by a common source and poured out in the service of others. And part of our mission as this lay community is to serve and to build community wherever we are. And for me, that has been kind of one heck of an adventure because I lived on Maui, I lived on Oahu, then I lived in St. Louis, and now I live across the river in Illinois. I've had different jobs. And so that has been a really intentional part of my life that has changed jobs that I've held to more meaningful experiences and relationships. When I was at St. Louis School, our mission integration team, MIT team, as we called it, formed what we called pods with teachers. So our entire faculty was kind of broken down into small communities, and we met once a month for a few minutes before faculty meetings just to check in on each other. When I went to St. Mary's High School in St. Louis, similar thing. We had different faith sharing groups that sort of enhanced our colleague experience. And then I left the Marianist family, formally as an employee. No, you never really leave, and I worked at SLU, St. Louis University, and I was a graduate student. And I really felt that serious lack of intentionality and community with the people that I was around all the time. And it was really hard for me. And so I started, because I couldn't take it. Like, I needed that depth of experience with the people that I worked with, that I spent all my time with. So I started with a few other people, what we called our Sunshine Committee, which was very like diet community, like a Diet Coke. We just like had happy hours and like sent people cards on their birthdays. Like, it was really simple, but for the team that I was a part of, it was groundbreaking because it was new and it was different. And for me, it felt kind of similar to how I've always operated, where you build that intentionality. I've been lucky enough in 9.5 years to work with some amazing students. I mostly at all boys Marianist high schools. So I was very involved with the LIFE program and helping other students cultivate relationships and communities with each other. And one student, and actually, I should say several students have said this now, but I think that one student said it and it gave me the influence for others. His name is Peter Sagapolutele. I don't know if anybody knows him. He graduated maybe, 2014-ish from St. Louis School. And he gave a talk on a Kairos retreat, if anyone knows that retreat, similar to Awakening. And he talked about how when you share faith with friends, you no longer have a friendship, you have a godship. And so he started this thing where everybody started calling it a godship. And that phrase stuck with me, and I used it with other students and tried to help the students that I worked with kind of understand how to cross that line from just being friends to something deeper and something more. And that is always faith at the heart of it. So my experience, just in a nutshell, and being parts of different communities. Like Mark mentioned, I was part of a Basin and Towel was our name, a community of people that worked at St. Louis and Chaminade and kind of the Mystical Rose community when I was there, and a group here in St. Louis working with students has always been to find ways to add depth to friendships and relationships so that it does cross that line of friendship into something more. And I see a couple head nods. So like, right? You've all experienced that retreat community or that energy, like, when you've crossed that line with somebody into something more and something deeper. And that is kind of what being a part of a community has taught me, and something that I try to cultivate wherever I am and kind of lead others. Mark, I'll pass it back to you.
And I think there's a special dimension that happens when you're in a Marinus Lake community. Now, obviously, we're biased, but that's okay, because so are you, hopefully, as students at Marinus universities. For me, one of the things that I think is really important is the mixed composition that comes with it. So we talk about mixed composition in different ways. So sometimes we talk about it as an equality between the brothers and priests and sisters and lay people. But I think it's also like, when you think about the early Marianists, they were different. Like, there was a chimney sweep, there was a teacher, there was a seminarian, like there were different types of people in the same community. And that's so helpful for me. So like, in these communities, we're people with various opinions and backgrounds, and we share as equals in community. So there's someone in Mallory's in my lay community that I could not stand when we were in college. She drove me crazy, and now she's one of my best friends.
It wasn't me, but no, it very well could have been.
No, that's now that I can't stand her. Just kidding. So like, there's an intentionality that comes with it, that we have varying opinions. So like, the early brothers communities, there's a great example of this. So like, when there was the janitor, the president of the school, the principal, the teachers, the whatever, that all came together and sat around the same Eucharistic table and dining room table and shared about a common mission. Well, the same thing is true with our Marinus Lay communities. We go and we live our different lives, and then we come back and we share in those, and we share our experiences from various backgrounds. So Mallory's doing fundraising right now. I'm a vocation director, like, very different backgrounds, but we can share a lot of common experiences. We've got teachers, we've got all kinds of different jobs, but also just where we live. At one point in our community's life, we were 12 time zones different. Mallory was in Hawaii, and we had someone doing service work in Northern Ireland. So like, one that was a logistic nightmare, but like, look at all the difference in cultures and experiences that came together. But I think that's true because of the intentionality. And that's something that is so important about how you want to live your life in a faith community. So we made a commitment, and Mallory will probably say this later, but she often is known to say, "This is community, you have to love me." And that's because we're intentional about it. So these Marinus Lake communities are intentional. People who are doing a year of service, you guys hopefully have heard of Marinus Pulse. There's this idea of like living and working together in an intentional way. And Marinus Lake communities are like that. So Mallory's going to talk a little bit more about that special dimension of Marinus Lake communities.
Yeah, I think, like Mark mentioned, like, we've been parts of Bible studies or, a really dynamic, powerful retreat experience. When you become part of the Marianist family and share in a MLC, a Marinus Lake community, there is something different. And I think that it goes all the way back to relationship at the core of faith and the relationship between Mary and Jesus. We say to Jesus through Mary as part of the charism. And that instantly implies relationship. We can't get to Jesus without Mary. We can't, and that translates into all of us. So it's not a linear faith. It's not just between me and God. It's between me and you and you and you, and how all of us relate to each other and to God. And I think that that kind of unique dimension enhances the Marianist family, and it makes you a part of something so much bigger than you, right? Father Marty mentioned at one point, actually, when I was living in Hawaii is kind of when I started the term, but I served on the National Marianist lay community leadership team. And that was a really eye-opening experience for me about being part of something bigger than just the vessels, than just St. Louis School, than just being a student at Chaminade. And, you know, moving around, having been in Ohio and Hawaii and now in St. Louis, I've been fortunate enough that I've gotten to meet Marianists in different places and experience that community. And it just continues to amaze me about how much we are part of something greater than ourselves. Mark, am I supposed to talk about the Lay Association? Is that you? Okay, cool. I'll do that. One thing that's also super unique about the lay Marianists is that they're recognized, we are a recognized third order to, I'm not going to butcher this. I'm going to pass the buck, Mark.
No problem. So
I'm being recorded. I don't want to say it wrong.
So the Vatican has what's called different types of categories of lay associations of the faithful. And there's all kinds of different lists, and lay Marianists are one. So it's not like we're just this random group of people that like to sit and drink coffee and sing Kumbaya. Like, it's an official, like, important thing that the church recognizes. And there's an important role that we as lay people have in the church. So, like, I mean, I'll kind of tie this into like the support that I've felt in this is like, so priests and brothers, no, I hope I'm not scandalizing anyone here. We're a little different than other people, you know? We take these weird vows and all kinds of stuff, which is, you know, there's a difference. And because I'm vocation director, I have to say the vows are awesome. I really do appreciate and love them, but they're different. They're not the normal thing. And people as lay Marianists are really in the world in a different way than we are. So that's something that I've really experienced and appreciated by being part of a lay community. I've never paid a mortgage. I've never done online dating. I've never paid taxes. You know, there are things that normal people do that I don't do because I'm a brother. And like, as vocation director, I really should put that on like a poster, you know, we don't online date, we don't pay taxes, come join us, you know, like, wouldn't that be great? Like, I think that's an important thing, but I'm with people in community that have these real things. I go to mass every day. I live with priests, but there are people in my community who haven't been to mass in a year because of the pandemic. And that's a real thing. In my mind, I go every day and it's just, you know, it's whatever, it's normal, it's whatever. But there's some of you maybe who haven't gone to mass in a long time, that haven't prayed with a group of people intentionally. And it's important for me and for Father Marty and for Brother Ed and whoever to be connected with lay people in that way. But there's so much more than that too. Like, so for example, Mallory's twins, she asked me to be the godfather, which is like a huge deal for me. Like, I'll move on from there, but like, that's an important thing that shows that, hey, I'm involved in the life of her son, even though he's however many months old, 9 months old, 10 months old. And I will be forever because we're in the same community. And that, I think, is a really important thing that comes with that intentionality. And that's, for me, a reality check. And that's part of that mixed composition. We share in the life of each other, but we grow in the same way.
Mark mentioned that I am famous for saying, this is community, you have to love me. And it's 100% true, especially with our vessel community. I say it all the time. And part of that is because I have grown up a whole lot. And I think we all will. 10 years from now, you're going to be like, I said, what? How many times did I email Father Marty with some crazy idea that I wanted to do? And he was very nice and just 10. He was so nice and just said, okay, I like your energy. Good answer. We meet each other where we are. And I think that's been the biggest blessing for me in community, is just being accepted for who I am, where I am, when I am, and how I am. And it has given me confidence to be myself and to grow. We formed this group in 2009, and there were not things like Zoom, or if there were, it wasn't commonplace to use them, right? We tried to do things like video blog websites that we called the Vessels Vlog, where we recorded ourselves talking and posted it on a website for people to watch, for like each other to watch. I never did that. We did it for like a year. I never did that because I just didn't. And nobody got mad at me. Nobody kicked me out. I think we probably had like a, hey, get your act together. Are you going to be a part of this or not conversation? But it was like a check-in. It wasn't mean. Mark mentioned online dating. There was a period of time where we were naming the retreats that we had as a lay community after whoever was the latest guy I went on a date with, because I was all fired up and talking about him. I mean, that's like how, well, I'm like the wild child of this group. And Mark's laughing. I feel like all we all do is sit at home right now because it's a pandemic, but whatever. My own journey has been seriously up and down. And I have been very fortunate to be a part of these communities that help stabilize me, that accept me as I am, moving around and living in different places, becoming a parent, getting married, like all those life benchmarks these people have been a part of. And while I always knew how important this group was for me, I think it honestly was this pandemic that really set it in. Because if you think about, all the people that you run into every day at work or wherever, when you stop going anywhere, you stop having those like hallway conversations, right? So who are the people that still call and check in? Who are the people that you regularly meet with? Well, for me, it's been this community, my vessels. So, if I didn't already know that I was well loved and accepted by this group, the last year has totally solidified that for me. And because I've been part of Vessels and because I've been part of the Marianist family, I have also been similarly loved and accepted in all kinds of different circles, like, moving to Hawaii and being, Hawaii is like remarkably hospitable. I know it's very cultural, but there's something about Hawaii Marianists that are just like, it's just the biggest, warmest hug ever. And I felt that the second I got there, and it was the hardest thing for me to leave. And, and it's because I am a part of this Marianist family that I can be me and show up as I am. And you have to love me because it's community, and I will love you right back. I should add that to it, Mark. Huh? I never really add it. I always think it, but I never really say it. I'll love you right back.
And so I think what's really important is, since this is called Share the Joy, joy is an intentional thing. It's different than happiness. Joy is an intentional thing. Your faith communities, especially Marianist Lake communities, have to be intentional. So with that, I'd like to turn it over to ask if you have questions. If you sent those to Father Marty, we'd be happy to answer those, but just kind of leave you with that idea of let's be intentional together.
Okay, thanks. Thanks, Mark and Mallory. Very grateful for your presentation. I have a couple of questions that have come. If others have questions, just send them through the chat. The one is, could you talk a little, you use the word intentional a lot. What does that mean exactly?
It's more than showing up, but that's the first step. You can't be present if you're not present. And so fully engaged. So whether that means, hey, today was a rough day and I need to start with sharing that. I need to share what happened today so that I can be fully present. That's being intentional. It's putting up with the people that you can't stand, someone in my lay community, and saying, no, we're going to move past this because we are a community. And being intentional is hard. And it's really about how you do it, but also the attitude that you bring with it.
And I think it's also about like going out of your way, right? So if you're at a place where you're new and you're trying to build community, it's about going out of your way to, you know, chat for a few minutes extra, to open up a little bit more, share a little bit more than you would. It's kind of like I said at the beginning, it's about like crossing that line and making those godships where there's just that little something extra that you put forth. Maybe it's a little bit of vulnerability. Maybe it's, you know, helping somebody move because they don't have a truck. It could be all those extra little things that help translate that relationship into something more and something deeper.
Okay, thanks. There's another question, and then I had two other parts that I was thinking about after the question came. And the question is, what's a good way to get young adults engaged in a community like this, and maybe people who don't take the initiative? So that was the question, but I had two others, and that is, do you bring other people into the community now, or is it set? And the second question that occurred to me, Mallory, is what about your husband? Is he part of this, or does he feel left out, or does he not care to?
Yeah, these are all really great questions. We're kind of making it up as we go along a little bit, because there's no like right or wrong answer, right? We started as a group of 9 people, and some of those people left. They sort of, you know, said, I am going to do something different. This was a great part of my life right now, you know, at a certain time. And so they move on. There are people who have gotten married in our community and their spouse wanted to be a part of it. And so they, you know, we've done some extra formation to help them kind of learn the history and traditions of the Marinus family. And they're kind of full members of our community. Dan, my husband, Dan, isn't really a sharer. He's a pretty introverted guy, and this just isn't his thing. And that's okay. So, you know, I go to I attend our virtual meetings every month. And when we have life benchmarks that we celebrate in each other's lives, such as weddings or births or baptisms, or, you know, when we do an in-person retreat, Dan will come and our kids will come and be a part of some of the conversations and the game nights. And then he'll just kind of go for a walk for the planning and the more serious stuff that he doesn't want to be a part of. That's sort of how we've operated. We didn't really add new people unless they were a spouse of somebody until like about a year and a half. No way. Has it been 2 already? So about 2 years ago, one of our, a UD student that Mark knew really well, you want to take this one? I don't actually know how Sean and Shannon became part of this.
So, like I mentioned, vocation director. So Sean reached out to me as vocation director and said, hey, I'm married. I don't want to be a brother, but I'm looking to join a lay community. And I don't think he actually knew that it was me that was checking the emails, because it was just vocations@marinus.us, like a generic email. And so reached out to me and I said, hey, I mean, this is Mark. We were at school together. Would you like to join us? And so I brought back to our community. And, you know, there was kind of a trial period to see how we both like got along with each other. If it was something like we were worried about, we've got 9-10 years of inside jokes and history. We didn't want somebody coming into that and feeling awkward. And so we said, hey, sure, let's try it out. And they've been great. So Shannon, Sean's wife, has only met 2 of us in person. and me was at a Starbucks for an hour between meetings and stuff. Like, that's it. Amanda, who is a mother, and she's training to be a doula and all kinds of like really good stuff with helping pregnant mothers, went to visit Shannon because she was overwhelmed and didn't know what to do with her new child. And it was great to just see them coming together and sharing in that because of that intentional community. Now, that first part of the question about how to start it, I think is really, really important, especially because of the time we're in right now. So charism, which is like we talk about the Marianist charism all the time. I define charism as a gift of the Holy Spirit given to a founder in response to a specific need within the church. So for Father Chaminade, that was the French Revolution and like the lack of faith formation. Well, right now, there is a real need in our church for intentional community. I mean, how many of you have been with a community in these last however many months? Probably not as many. You know, your awakening fourth nights and those kinds of like, you've got that, but there's going to be a real need for community in the future. And I hope that your campus ministers and theologians and Marianist people are like planning ahead for this. And the easiest way to start is brew a pot of coffee, or if you're 21, gather around some pog or something, you know, like there's like whatever 21-year-olds drink, I don't know, but like sit down and like bake a thing of brownies and invite people. And I think that's what's really important is don't judge who it is. Don't say, oh, are you perfect before you join us? No, have a seat, sit down at the table and let's share together and then grow from there.
Good. There was another question about what do you think would be the next development of lay communities? How can they improve? How can they adapt? Any thoughts about that?
So unlike again, we're part of something bigger, right? So big picture, MLCNA, the Marianist Lay Community of North America, is piloting currently a new formation program that is totally done virtually. And it's for people who are interested in kind of taking that next step in intentionality of learning about the charism and becoming lay Marianists. So there is a new formal program at the national level. If that is something that speaks to you, I will send the info that I know to your campus ministers. I don't know if you can jump in at this moment because I think it's already started, but there'll be future opportunities. So that's kind of like, you know, the big picture. I imagine Mark has a vocation plug in there somewhere.
Sure, I could do that. Like, I think it's important to think about your vocation in any way. And I'm not just trying to convince you to be a brother or whatnot, but if you're interested, let me know. But I think it's an important thing to like, how are you going to live out your baptismal call in whatever way? And that's like an intentional and an important thing to do, no matter what area of life that you're going to be in. So as Marianists or as people that are interested in small faith communities, how can you start that? One thing, so the question was kind of like, what does the future look like? What does it need? So Mallory and I and Kevin and different like Chaminade graduates that started these lay communities came together because they had an experience of the Marianists. They were all together and then they graduated and left. Okay, and that's same true with Mallory and my community. And that's really hard. I think something that needs to happen in the future is you start communities where you are. And especially because that mixed composition I talked about. I don't know if you guys have noticed, but our church and our world and everything is very polarized. You know, Republicans and Democrats or whatever division you want to talk about. I would love to see communities that are completely different in ideology and politics and whatever, that are able to come together and have an intentional conversation and gather around the Eucharist and gather around the dining room table and say, I disagree with you, but I love you because we're a community. And I think that's what our church and our world really needs. And I think, and I've dedicated my life to thinking this, that Father Chaminade's mission of communities of equals that come together for formation in faith and the transformation of the world, I really think Father Chaminade's vision is the answer to that. least I hope so, because otherwise I don't know what I'm doing here.
How about this one? Somebody wants to know, what about people who are interested in the human community part, but are not people of faith?
Yeah, that's a hard one. I think there's a really, because I'm speaking with people that are in Hawaii, I think you can understand this on a level, on an even deeper level. There's something about hospitality and community and that warmth that you get from people that withstands faith tradition, right? The thing that is unique about the Marianist family is that it is rooted in faith. And you know, it goes back to that relationship between Jesus and Mary, and God is present in these communities. And if you're not too sure about where you are in your own faith journey, I think that's a great thing to bring to a pot of coffee or a pog or a brownie conversation, to use Brother Mark's analogies. You know, bring it out, talk about it with people, and explore that, and let that be something that, you know, enters, and allow the vulnerability to be open to the vulnerability. There's the words, and explore that, and just, you know, let that be something that can bring you together and explore. Do you want to add?
Yeah, so I think there's various things that people rally or identify as part of. So there's creeds, so what you believe as a person of faith. There's codes, there's cultures, there's different like things that bring people together. So if you don't have that creed part, rely on the code part or the culture part. Like I have a good friend here who has a pug meetup, like the dogs, pug, like, and she talks about it all the time with so many people. And she has met so many different people because they all have the same dog, which to me is like, okay, but like, you need to start with some type of common interest. This is Mckenna Hamilton, for those of you who know her. She's a Sacred Hearts girl. And that's really important to have some type of common interest. So faith is an easy one because we all sort of believe the same things. We all have the same general understanding, but that doesn't have to be what you started around. So it could be, hey, we are all Chaminade grads and we're going to start this alumni get together where we talk about things that were important at Chaminade, whether that's watching a Silver Swords game or that's talking about how you went to Next Step Shelter and you fed the hungry. You know, it doesn't have to be a faith thing, but it has to be a thing that brings you together. And I think there's so much more than faith. So many other things other than faith, whether that's more or not, I don't know, but find something that brings you together and rally around it.
Okay, how about this question? Somebody wants to know about, is the community more than socializing and praying together? Is there any service outside the community?
So it's hard for us as a virtual community to do physical acts of service together. So one of our people was a teacher at an inner city school, and she started an after school program for kids that it was needed a little more time after school. So we were able to financially support her, to pay for her supplies and that kind of stuff, to then have that program possible. But we also sponsor, I don't remember if it's 2, 3 students at Our Lady of Nether School in Nairobi. So we each give 1% of our income to a communal pot, and some of that goes to support kids going to school. Father Marty, you would probably know better than me. How much is it a year? 400 a year or something?
It's like 135, I think.
Okay.
Yeah.
See? To send
the high school is a little more, I think, Mark.
Okay. But it's like nothing to send a student to school for a year. And we're able to do that because we pool our resources and, you know, share in that.
I want to add too, just really fast, that like you guys have to remember, like we've been doing this for a while, right? So when we were in college and forming this group, and even right out of college, like we did not have a shared checking account and things like that. Like this is stuff that has grown over time. So, this isn't like what you have to do or like rules like this is just how we have developed as a group and how we've come to recognize what works for us and how we want to spend our time. One of the other things too is that we have ebbed and flowed with this a little bit, and this pandemic has obviously thrown a huge wrench in a lot of things. But one of the things that we are trying to be intentional about is, while we have this meaningful group and we, fill each other up and share this community, we also try to build community wherever we are. So there are members of our group. There's a married couple who run the pre-Cana program with a few other couples at their parish. There's another couple in our group who Andrew brews beer. So he's like always inviting the neighbors over and like kind of building out, they just moved. So like building in their new neighborhood community. I have tried to do that at like different jobs that I work and things like that. So while we don't have like direct service, I think part of that is because we're, all over the place. We do try to like kind of build where we are a little bit.
And it's not just friends getting together, sharing old stories or whatever. We read things together. We whether that's faith-based or current events or Marianisty things that like help develop who we are. We challenge each other. There's a lot that has happened.
Mark, I just want to underline what you said before about Father Chaminad's emphasis on, bringing different kinds of people together. There's a collaborative effort in our approach to life and spirit, building community, and also, as you've been talking about, outreach to others. So I think it has a lot to say today, especially in a very polarized world. And let me say this. Yeah, Mallory, you got a question?
Sure. Yeah, I got a really great question that I kind of thought might be fun to answer with everybody. The question was, what are some ways or things that give you pure joy when you felt like you've gone through a true struggle? And one of the best things, which I have really struggled to recreate, when I was living in Hawaii, I would drive. This is silly, maybe, but I would drive from from Chaminade, and I would go all the way around like the east side and the North Shore, and then come back through like Pearl City. It's been a long time since I was there. I don't remember the name of roads. But it would take me like an hour and a half, and it was like beautiful. And I would just like stare at the mountains in Waimanalo, because how could you not? But, and I would play really, really loud, like Christian rock music and scream sing until sometimes I cried a little. That for me was like my biggest release. And I still like try to do that, but it's just not, it's not the same when you can't really drive like along water. For me, that was like very therapeutic. I'm also, as we have said multiple times, I'm a huge extrovert. And so for me, a lot of times I don't know how I feel about something or what I really think about something until I can like get it out of me. So Mark is laughing because he's had that phone call, I don't even know how many times, where I'm like, can I just extrovert for a little bit? Because I need to talk through and figure out what's going on or why I feel that way or what's going, or I journal sometimes if it's like really personal, or, if it's kind of like something I'm wrestling with faith or things like that. But as an extrovert, I just have to like get it out. But yeah, drives by water with pretty mountains are the best for me.
You can come back anytime, Mallory.
That's my joy. Yeah.
All
The,
right,
the Mississippi River is pretty brown. It's
we're
ugly.
pretty close
It's really
to
sad.
our ending. So, Mark and Mallory Green, thanks so much for giving us this time. I know it's late where you are. It's only late afternoon here. But sharing your experience and the enthusiasm that you have for this is evident. And I hope it's a source of encouragement for all of us here, and especially for our young adults as they look forward to life beyond Chaminade University and finding a home, a faith home that can be nourishing. So thanks very much. Really appreciate your time and effort, and God bless you both. Maybe Jeremiah, do you have any final words?
You know, it's really interesting, Mallory, brother. So Joseph Nugent actually promoted, he was trying to build up some of this not that long ago, like maybe a month and a half ago. So I need to follow up with him and see kind of where that's going. This is a great talk, and I think it's super, super relevant for our time and our community to keep on building that sense of family, you know, when we talk about the family spirit, that Ohana spirit, you know, on the island. And so continue encouragement for those who are on our Share the Joy, seek out, you know, these communities and, you know, continue to encourage each other and build upon what we have in this Marianist charism, you know, in this tradition that we have. It's such a joy and it's such a blessing for so many, and it could be a blessing for all of us too. So thank you guys. Thank you, brother.
Thank
Hey.
you. This was so fun. It feels so good to reconnect with Hawaii. I miss it.
And thanks to everybody who joined today. Very grateful, and God bless you all. Stay safe.
Wait, sorry, I have some quick announcements. Sorry, just really quick. I'll keep it quick. I promise. Just a reminder, our last Share the Joy is gonna be next Wednesday. Oh, sorry, I didn't change the date, but it's with Taylor. So if you guys would like to come out, please check that out. That's gonna be our last one, is next week, Wednesday. The date is wrong. Just a reminder, Tauta Marianas has a cultural movie night tonight in honor of International Extravaganza. It's going to be at 6 p.m. at the Student Center. So please come and support. And then they have a bunch of other things happening throughout the week and things like that. So please check out that if you can. Oh, sorry. I thought I was sharing my screen. I was not. My apologies. Can everybody see that? Okay. So our next Share the Joy is going to be with Taylor, our seminarian. He's going to, this is our last one. The date is wrong. So it's going to be next week, Wednesday. Same time, same place. Please check it out. He's really great. It's a friend of mine from my community. So I really appreciate this talk with Mallory and Brother Mark, just because Taylor's from my community and we have a lot of fun stories to talk about as well. So definitely check that out. And obviously you can see from his pictures, he's a really great seminarian. So it's going to be a really fun blast. So, and Mallory and Brother Mark, you're welcome to come as well and join us. Again, just to repeat, Tauta Marianas has their movie night tonight at 6 p.m. in the Lou. And then there's a bunch of other different events from the different culture clubs. So please come out and support if you can. It's a lot of in-person events. So it would be great for you guys to really immerse yourself. CSPB is hosting the Paradise Cove. Again, if you are interested, you can talk to Sierra or check the OSAL office and sign up. Also, they have a 3-on-3 dodgeball tournament. So if you want to register and sign up, check out the QR code. You will get a t-shirt from Dodgeball. That's what I heard. So that's going to be really awesome. Thanks, Eddie, for putting together this event. But you'll get an Average Joe t-shirt if you win. There is a canned food drive that OSAL is doing for the Hawaii Food Bank. So please, if you want to donate, they have boxes there. We are still also collecting donations from our Founders Week of Service for the Wally House. So if you want to support, please, there's a list of items. We'll have that posted, I think, all over campus, that if you want to check out and come and support, that would be really grateful. If you want to be a part of OSAL, you can apply. They are hiring. And then finally, check out their Instagrams and social media and ours as well. But that's it. Sorry. Thank you.
Okay, thanks again, everybody, and stay safe.